Hi, you are watching SightsIn Plus, and this is Viekas. Please do subscribe the channel for the HR news, for HR updates, and conversation with the top class CHROs. Today, we are going to discuss about the social media policy for the employees. Social media is very effective and free platform for the employees where they can share their positive and as well negative aspects of their work experience. They can share their achievements. They can also grow their networks. Recently, we have also seen a couple of videos and postings gone viral. And in these postings and videos, the employees are talking about the toxic culture of the organization. They are also sharing some painful layoff experience. And sometimes we have also seen that employees are, writing some offensive content. They are also found in derogatory comments because they represent some organization, so that also dents the reputation of that organization. So every organization, every company needs to have a social media policy. Today we will discuss, try to understand that what should be the important elements of the social media policy and how we will enforce this. Recently, there is also one judgment by the Madras High Court, and in this judgment, the Madras High Court said that employees have a right to vent. We will go a little deeper into this, and we will try to understand that what is the guideline by the High Court on this social media postings. To discuss in detail, we have three senior panelists. Let me introduce Mr. Viekas K. Khokha, is the Chief Human Resource Officer with the Dhanuka Agritech. Ms. Sapna Sharda, she is Senior General Manager HR with Thomas Cook. And Mr. Pramod Kumar is Senior Director, Human Resources at LTIMindtree. Pramod, if I start with you, and I look for your opening comments on this Madras High Court judgment, in which the court said that employees have right to vent. I think there are also certain caveats. The court is also talking about some privacy part. Otherwise, the court said that every organization has certain issues, every organization has certain grievances. So nothing is wrong if employees writing on the social media. What is your comment on this?
Thanks a lot, Ramesh, first of all, and I'm privileged to be part of this panel with senior panel like Viekas and Sapna, and I'm really thankful to SightsIn Plus for inviting me to be part of this prestigious panel. Frankly speaking, right to vent is definitely a very contemporary and the progressive decision given by the Madras High Court. Let us take a step back. Is it new? Answer is no. Because if you look at the Constitution of India, Article 19, subsection 1, clearly specify about the right of, as a fundamental right of freedom of expression. That means every citizen of this country can have an opinion on their own and express themselves. Now let us look at it in the same context. Does this mean every citizen has got right to say anything and everything about the government or on any matter? Constitution also talks about the certain limitations in terms of matters related to national security or related to the country's sovereignty. Now let us take this example in the context of an organization. Right to vent is basically, if we look at from HR perspective, the employee demographic which we are dealing with nowadays is basically Gen Z entering the workforce, and the lot is expressive, vocal, and entrepreneurial in nature, and have an opinion about anything and everything which is happening in and around them in the organization. So of course, they have opinion about the matter. Now, as an employer, what is that we need to do? We cannot stop them from venting out, from expressing their feeling. And hence, what is that our roles and responsibilities? Of course, we need to create our internal channel mechanism. There are organizations which has got Yammer group or in-house social media platform wherein employees express their feelings and feedback about certain policies, matters of the organization. Idea is, my quick suggestion for companies will be to leverage this energy so that our employee base if we are dealing with a 50,000 employee base, we take this as an opportunity wherein the 50,000 employee base becomes the brand advocate of our organization, rather by providing them a wonderful employee experience as long as they are working with our organization. So frankly speaking, right to vent the Madras High Court, I have a positive input about this judgment, how we implement, and there are nuances which we can discuss as we go on the panel.
Absolutely, absolutely. Sapna, what is your opening comment on this, and how do you see the importance of social media policy for the employees?
So, Ramesh, thank you for making me a part of this discussion and the panelists, and inviting me along with the other panelists, Vikas as well as Pramod. I'm honored to be a part of this. So, Ramesh, what I feel is yes, that every individual has a right to freedom of speech and a right to vent, uh, as long as people understand their limitations about how damaging or how how it will affect the organization per se. So if an employee is trying to vent, if an employee is trying to discuss, if an employee is trying to discuss any grievances, is it really affecting the goodwill, or the employee is trying to put across certain discussion points where the person is trying to gather information? Social media as a platform needs to have certain content which you are basically discussing to gather information, to look at what are the alternatives, to work around on some of those areas. So what I feel is yes, there should be a platform where people express their views, where people talk about certain agenda points, but there should also be a area where they know how and what they are discussing on the social platform. uh, when you're trying to discuss certain matters, you're trying to gauge, you're trying to put across information, and you're trying to get some solutions out of those information. It shouldn't be just restricted to whether you are just trying to put across certain allegations to an organization or to a process, or you're damaging the goodwill of an organization. So I feel that yes, you should vent. And when the Madras High Court ruling is what it talks about is, yes, the person did speak about it, but it was not damaging to the organization as well, which is what the Madras High Court ruled, this whole thing about when the employee was discussing. So I feel it has to be designed in such a way where you have certain content, you have certain, do's and don'ts in an organization when you are putting a guidelines for a policy, and where you are trying to put across to people that this is what you will go about when you talk to social media. You can approach the social media, you can post certain agenda points on the social media, but if there is anything more which is further required, you can approach the organization as well directly. So regularly monitoring, regularly looking at what is the kind of content which we are trying to put on social media becomes very important in this context.
And because what are your opening comments on this Madras High Court judgment? And the important is that, yeah, of course, the organizations need to have social media policy, but what should be the important elements of this policy and how the organizations enforce this policy? That is very important. So I would request if you can help in this.
Thanks. And just taking forward from what we have heard from Pramod and Sapna, I would like to say that, one is releasing a policy is one thing. Other is helping people to make the policy part of their life is another thing. So both the journeys have to be crossed. When I looked at this subject, I looked at it from a very different context and not from the Madras High Court, but something which happened in our organization where a person commented representing the organization to one of the ministries, and it was taken against the organization. And we had to coach a person how to use the judgment in terms of where to comment. So if I look at some of the important aspects of social media that we have looked at, one is communication about the organization. That's the first thing, because there I need to protect. An organization has a stature and it has to be communicated only in a proper way. So, we restrict that communication strictly through organization channels only and organization authorized pages. So you can't just go and talk about the organization anywhere. Again, social media also has a nuance of people tagging each other, right? When you send a communication, you tag people, you make people part of that communication when they are not. So I think we restrict and we guide people to restrict themselves to tag people on social media handles unless they are officially being done. Uh, Again, very important aspect which you have talked very relevantly, Sapna and Pramod, is breaching of privacy without the necessary authority and responsibility. So I think we need to ensure that we tell people that please let a private conversation remain private. What is difference between a public and a private conversation is different. It could be any conversation which is sensitive in nature needs to have a sensitivity in terms of where it is shared and it is restricted from public platform. Uh, Again, there was a tendency that once a person has raised a post, you tend to give comment, you become part of that post. Avoid being part of negative posts on media is something that we also suggested people as a part of our guidelines, as a part of a policy. Again, official content that we share about our organization, industry on social media has to be completely restricted to the industry or organization doing it, not the individual. So I think such guidelines have been made part of a regular communication which is happening to the people on a very regular basis. In fact, we do it through forums which are online. We are doing it through offline forums. We are constantly engaging with people to educate them where to step out, because today it's part of your life, right? When you open the page, it's a tendency to just like or comment on something. So constantly engaging with people and letting them know helps you to have these irregularities completely removed. But we are in the journey. Thanks.
Because how you will enforce this policy that comes under the code of conduct, ethics, or what? How you will regulate this?
So, like I said, code of conduct is one thing which is more of push, right? I always treat this guidance as a pull factor where you keep reiterating it, right? Till the time it becomes part of your life. Now, whenever you see anything about patented brands, or industry information, or anything for or against government. Now, these are the areas that you restrict yourself, right? Completely. And we state good examples to people. Like last town hall, we had our senior leaders talking of what people could refrain on social media. And it was actually talked about in a very open forum. How to create a better and positive environment at workplace. So there are multiple situations through which you can alert people without getting too much into code of conduct, because what I understand is people sign those code of conduct pages, still make mistakes, and then you don't want to reprimand them when they make mistakes. So you still have to educate them. Their possibilities of making mistakes are minimum.
Pramod, absolutely. Education, training, this is absolutely that is required. But what do you think? What should be the important elements of this social media policy, and disciplinary consequences? That is also very important when you are framing a policy. So without disciplinary consequences, it is not going to work. What is your comment on this?
Yeah, absolutely, Ramesh. So I totally agree with Vikas. So what he has mentioned, communication and awareness is a key to this. So I'd like to explain it a little bit. When we're going to implement and having the social media guidelines in an organization, what is the basic philosophy behind it? Gen Z workforce, we want to create speak up culture, but before it's like having the social media policy, we need to have listening mechanism internally created within our system itself, wherein we hear our employees and address their concerns and grievances before it goes into the public social media, I would say. So the policy aspect, if I talk about, it should clearly lay out what the definition of the social media is. What is actually we mean by the social media per se? What are the key constituents of social media policy? What is that something mandatory to have? Say, for an example, most of the organization, typically the global organizations, have got laws of the land to abide by in different countries. If we talk about the European nations, maybe like if you talk about GDPR, or in US, if you talk about it's like US laws, or in India, if you talk about the data privacy rules, so on and so forth. And these are very, very diverse and varying in nature. The common thread which encompasses all is right to have a privacy with respect to the sensitive personal information, not only to employees as well as for the clients. Typically, for the services organization, any breach of this leads to a business loss. So our social media policy must cover these aspects, basically the confidentiality aspects, and the breach of trust with the client, those aspects, what all things they need to they can talk about, what all things they should not talk about. As far as disciplinary management is concerned, this aspect, the policy, except of this policy, should also be part of the service rule, as well as it should be the part of the standing order of the organization, because standing order is meant for a set of employees who are a set of workmen categories of like workforce, I would say, and service rule is meant for non-workmen set of workforce. Standing order is duly certified by the labor commissioners. So once it is certified, it becomes an agreed employment contract. I would say an extension of our appointment letter and the offer letter beyond what is not mentioned in the offer letter, I would say. Third aspect comes, it's like creating internal platform wherein if they are having any discrepancies or in any opinion, they should prefer raising it to their managers, or maybe grievance redressal committee, or maybe talking about this in open forum within the organization itself. Beyond that, also, if it is not resolved, of course, as per the law of the land in India, right, freedom of expression, they have a right to talk about in the public social media also. But there, our do's and don'ts of the policy part should govern. Any sort of misconduct, is it leading to financial loss or reputational loss to the organization? And if it, as much as possible, business loss, quantification of the business loss, and then deciding the quantum of punishment, keeping in mind the principle of natural justice. Basically, the quantum of punishment should be in line with the gravity of the misconduct. So that is net, it's like looking at the aspect wherein it is mandatory for us to have social media guidelines, do's and don'ts, making employees aware of, it's like what is to be done, what is not expected to be done, awareness, communication, web-based training, all those things must be done. If at all they are raising within the system, address the things. Going beyond this, if it is eventually leading to reputation and it's like reputational loss or financial loss to the organization, of course, keeping the principle of natural justice in mind and the service rule and the standing order, we have every right as an employer to take the initiate disciplinary action.
Sharda, how do you see? Of course, the social media training that is essential for the employees. Who takes the responsibility for this? That's the communication department that will take the responsibility, or the HR, or that will be the joint effort by both the HR and communication. And how do you train your employees when we talk about the training for the social media?
Ideally, I feel, Romesh, it is the responsibility of each and every employee to understand this policy, right? So while the training can happen from HR, while the training can be done from the corporate communication team, while the training can happen from the information technology team as well. But the idea is that people need to understand what is it that they are being trained on. The content becomes very essential here. And what have they understood in this entire process? So there needs to be, a lot of live examples which you're trying to build onto. You're trying to give them examples in terms of what are privacy settings, what is it that will harm the reputation of an organization, where is there a breach in terms of any financial loss which will incur a financial loss to the company. So what kind of posts are acceptable, what kind of posts are not acceptable, the do's and don'ts which have to be framed properly. So while it's a joint effort overall at an organization level, but I believe there are a lot of layers which go through this entire policy. It involves your managers, it involves your team leaders, it involves the employees, it involves a lot of departments who have to work hand in hand to go through and roll out this policy together. to ensure that the policy is end-to-end delivered and understood by the employees, it becomes very important for all the departments to work together on this. And some of them majorly will be HR, corporate communications, the IT, and the legal team, which is what I believe in.
So because finally, what are your tips for the employees to writing on the social media?
So my guidance to employees is that you have a supervisor. There's a supervisory layer. I think it's always wise to get back and take an opinion before you could take a decision. So I think in various forums it's been said that our leadership should be aligned with the philosophies on all policies. So whenever people get back to senior leaders, there's a common communication that they're receiving across. Before they take any decisions, they could seek guidance from the supervisors. Like before meeting you, Romesh, I went to my proprietor and took this permission today that I'm going to talk to Romesh. And I think I follow the rule from my level to down the line. And I think everybody needs to take permission. I think authority, responsibility, and the matrix really follows to the core. And if people are said no, then they would follow the rule. If they're allowed, then they go ahead. So all that is done. That is one way to do it. Second is always I'm going with the philosophy which Pramod highlighted, that we categorize the kind of damage that happens through A, B, and C. These A, B, and C are categorized in terms of what is most damaging to what is least. And accordingly, there is a reprimand which has been talked about in the document and the code. And people understand that what kind of damage they could cross, because if the damage is low, then obviously the reprimand level could be letting a person go with a warning or something. If it is too damaging, then it could also lead to other disciplinary actions like a suspension or anything else. Now, each aspect is talked very clearly. We've done work with one of the organizations which helped us to create an online training tool, which was very, very good. It talked of a situation and then people could understand that situation through that animated tool. And you could run and you could take a quiz and you could ensure that you are certified. So we ensure that everybody is in the organization is certified with that tool. It's an auto-operated tool. You need to certify yourself. The moment you cross the tool, you attended the quiz, you got minimum 70%, you're certified. Everybody in the organization had to go to that. And that tool itself specified very clearly the situations for A, B, and C. So this is another way of graduating people up in terms of their understanding of what they would feel is right or wrong versus what is actually right or wrong.
Thank you, Viekas. And Pramod, what is your advice to the employees for writing on the social media?
So if I talk from employee perspective, first of all, I need to give opportunity to the company or the organization wherever I'm working to address my grievances. And each organization nowadays typically have got their multi-layers of redressal mechanism in place, starting with the immediate manager, followed by the committee, or maybe online or offline, followed by maybe like HR team members, or maybe like a specific authorities. One can raise a complaint to anonymous, maybe written or online, whatever the case may be. So there are multiple forums available wherein employees can raise their concern and get it addressed. So my suggestion will be definitely try the internal mechanism to get the concerns addressed. At the same time, two aspects to it. If I'm dissatisfied with certain things and I find this external social media is only the option, I'll still prefer, not damaging the reputations or maybe leading something to the financial losses of the organization, unless something very unethical going on. I like to still raise it to maybe the right forum of the government agencies. And if at all I'm writing it to the social media, I will, vent out in a manner which gives opportunity to maybe like an organization to look into the matter and resolve my grievances instead, and malicious intent to defame an organization. First part of it. Second part of it is equally true, wherein I'm happy with the great policy with most of the organizations are having, say, talk about the wonderful event program or the CREST facility or a very out of the box benefit plans, something like LGBT community being included as part of health insurance policy. Do talk great about, do appreciate employer, because it encourages other employers to follow the practices which has been started by some other organization. So net, being sensitive about the company which we are working with and being mindful of the business interest, yet as a responsible citizen, be vocal about, speak up about something if unethical practices are happening or something wherein internal machinery has failed and we want to bring it to the notice to the government agencies. Absolutely, it's like we have right to do the same.
Right, absolutely. And Sapna, how do you see? Do you have any advice for the employees when they are going to write the positive aspect of their work experience or the negative aspect of their work experience? What is your advice to these employees?
So, Ramesh, I also feel that the employees need to share the positive experiences which are there. Positive, obviously, when you see certain engagement events which are happening, you see there are certain launch of new initiatives which have happened in the organization. If there's some growth or some achievement which the employees want to share, definitely that should be something which should be there on the social media. In terms of negative, I'm sure that nobody likes negative publicity. But having said so, if people want to discuss certain forums or want to have certain ideas which they want to discuss, uh, I think the whole idea is to gauge and understand what is happening in other industries, or to understand what are people experiencing in other industries. I think that kind of content, is still okay when you're trying to post on social media. So, for example, if you're trying to understand what are the recruitment practices which are happening in other industries, or what is it that I can do better in terms of launching a new product, probably that can go on the social media, which can give ideas to people to go ahead and utilize in their own business and probably build onto the goodwill. So, probably these kind of areas could help people get onto social media, interact, build onto their networking, and then move around and gather more thoughts, more ideas, how to go ahead and present, some of those areas. So I believe this is where social media can play a very important role, for the employees as well as, for the organization per se. So one is some of these kind of initiatives. Second is obviously you need to keep monitoring as to what kind of content is going on social media. So it cannot be necessarily that, everybody's just trying to post whatever they love, but then you have to keep a track of what they're trying to build onto. Is it something to do on certain, groups? Is it on certain forums which they are following? Is it something which is, very bothering to the organization? Definitely, you need to keep looking and tracking some of those areas. So I believe that is another important aspect when you are on social media.
I think we have discussed about the social media policy for the business, what should be the essential elements in the social media policy. Because how do you see the role of social media when we talk about the HR, human resources? How do you see the importance of social media here?
Yeah, Ramesh, I really like this question. Really pet for all of us because I think it's the most necessary evil now. And because I think when you look at now hiring a millennial, last year I looked at my data, I hired almost 90% millennials, 90% plus millennials in the organization, and I am going into Gen Zs now. I really need to check their pulse to go there, and I think it's not possible. It's not going to be possible without getting into their shoes and knowing what they do, how they do, what their work life is, uh, for us to even attract candidates. Uh, Talking of my industry, I get lot of posts from agri colleges students who want to join the bandwagon of Dhanuka. I think it's all happening through social media interaction where we talk of farmers' income and wealth, and people get excited about being part of this industry from the relevant colleges. Now, this is one of the channels through which we get a good number of people who want to join us. I think the second is talking of culture of organization. I think it's a very effective tool. You can really talk of culture in multiple ways, and through interactions, through interviews, it is very difficult to talk of culture. I think you can showcase a culture wonderfully through social media interactions in terms of how you celebrate, how you enjoy, how you have fun, how you basically come across each other and talk. I think wonderfully you can put it across in social media and talk. Needless to say, I think it becomes a very important channel of also communication with the prospective candidates, because how does anybody reach? They'll come through consultant, and consultant will have a certain level of credibility, in terms of established network. But social media is there. So I think a lot of traction is towards going through the website, seeing what are the vacancies, looking at the job roles, doing their own fitment, and using all sorts of AI tools to shortlist people. I think social media becomes a very important, necessary channel for our communication of culture, as well as hiring and prospective hiring of newer and newer people for us.
Yeah. And Sapna, how do you use the social media for the recruiting, for the employer branding, for EVP, etc.?
So, Ramesh, yes, we do use some of these platforms in social media, because considering now majority of the people use social media, like I was just going through some of, the data and the numbers which were presented. I think 60% of the population right now uses social media. And out of that, 8 hours on an average people spend on social media. So it's very important to target that audience, and you definitely need to look at what is it that you are presenting or building onto social media. So forums like LinkedIn, forums like Twitter, forums like Instagram have become very popular of the recent post pandemic era. People now want to go on LinkedIn, people now want to go and network, people now want to go and see what is happening on LinkedIn, who's moving where. And I think we all have seen that kind of transition. So we definitely go ahead and share a lot of posts on LinkedIn. We share a lot of posts on Insta. Even Facebook as a medium is now being used for professionals, where you are looking at certain recruitments, because that's also another platform where you get a lot of networking, where you get a lot of people who are interested and want to come down on and look at your company culture and want to join you. So I think these are some of the forums which are very important right now in the current age which we are, to target the audience which we are looking at for our organization. Obviously, it just goes without saying that yes, you have to look at expanding, and you have to look at change, and this is one of the biggest change which is happening in the industry right now.
Pramod, how do you see the best use of social media when we talk about the HR, and how do you see when we talk about the employee engagement part, some employee experience part, some the employee development, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely, Ramesh. So I'll give slightly longer answer for this. See, it is well proven analytics. There's a direct correlation between employee experience and into customer experience. Okay, and HR metrics to measure the employee experience is ENPS score, that is Employee Net Promoter Score. How it is calculated is basically the percentage of your employees who are promoter for your organization, subtracting this with the percentage of your employees who are detracted from the organization. So basically, how many percentage of our employees are the brand advocate of my organization, who are recommending their friends, families, or family members to join this as a great place to work. When Viekas talked about we are having 90% employees, millennials and Gen Z entering the workforce, this is business imperative to have a discipline in place, wherein instead of calling it as a right to vent, how we can use this as an opportunity for us to create a great employee value proposition, rather leverage it as a tool wherein EVP can be talked widely in a public domain, and more employees and the potential candidates becomes interested to join my organization. What can be better than our existing employees talking about the great benefit policies and the way they are getting already treated while working with this company? How can we do that? Idea is to, if you see, the Gartner has predicted employers HRs basically there'll be a shift in the priorities from employee experience to employee life experience. That means it is just not queries or grievances resolution, rather how entire life cycle of employees are being taken care of by the employer defines the complete employee value proposition, and that's where employees start advocating as a brand ambassador of the company to the social media, offline, online, in whatever manner they can do. So the tips basically as an employer is basically to create a culture wherein employees feel valued, they are being heard, wonderful listening mechanism wherein the speak up culture is being created, they raise their concerns and getting things addressed within the approved grievance redressal mechanism itself. And when they see this thing happening, it leads to a greater employee experience, greater engagement score, greater ENPS score, and leading into eventually higher customer net ENPS scores also. So there's a direct correlation between higher ENPS and higher ENPS leads to higher customer net promoter scores also. We are making employee experience deliver us a greater business result. So I see this as an opportunity for an employer to draft a guidelines, make employees aware of do's and don'ts, make them aware of the confidentiality aspects and the financial reputation losses aspects, so that they doesn't damage the organization's like brand image in the market. At the same time, create a speak up culture, provide an opportunity wherein things are addressed, and external opportunities wherein they can talk great about the organization and to attract potential candidates for the long run.
So because we tried to discuss, I think all the aspects of social media policy, that is for the business and for the HR as well. Anything which is important and we did not cover here, would you like to share?
I think we covered all aspects, except there are a lot of things within an organization which are confidential in nature and which has to be disclosed through the right channel. And it's very different. It's very important for people to have the discretion of knowing what is confidential, what is public. Now, either you teach them that or give them a sight into their judgment and skill, how they would say something is confidential versus something could be public. I mean, that is very important for people not making mistake unknowingly, because I feel pained if I have to reprimand somebody who's not done the error knowingly. My pain goes more for that, but I can't do anything. So I think skilling more people on knowing what is confidential versus what could be talked more is something that we could do more. That's it. Thank you.
And Sapna, what is your concluding remarks?
I feel prevention is better than cure is what I would put as my remark. There has to be certain guidelines, there has to be a lot of training, there has to be a lot of education per se in terms of social media. We've evolved and we are evolving, and there is continuously a change which is coming in, day out on the social media platform. And it's very dynamic, I mean, you cannot control it for a day, you cannot control it for a week. You have to look at the policy, you'll have to, relook at how things have to be communicated to your employees, how they need to be imparted to your employees, and how they follow it. End to end is what you will have to drive it. So, obviously, you will have to look at how best you can prevent it rather than reaching to a area where you have to curb it or you have to reprimand it or you have to penalize somebody on this.
And Pramod, what are your final comments? Yeah, Ramesh, I totally agree with Sapna. In fact, so right to vent, I would call it as an opportunity for an employer to leverage this as a best way to create a greater it's like a brand value in the market by leveraging the workforce which we are dealing with, treating them fairly, transparently, creating a speak up culture so that they talk about great about the organization. They are the brand advocate in the market to allure talent. So I see this as an opportunity for an employer, wherein it's like we leverage this as an opportunity, Romesh.
So thank you so much, Viekas, Sapna, and Pramod for joining the conversation and sharing your wonderful thoughts. Thank you so much.